G'day athletes, Keith here. Welcome to the Kiltwood Athlete Podcast. If you're over 40 years old, chances are you've grown up watching the Rocky movies and been inspired by Rocky workouts, Rocky montages, and all that fun, good stuff that Rocky Balboa did. And looking at the demographic of listeners to this podcast, most of you are in this age group, so I I would be safe in assuming that most of you have watched the Rocky movies. They're very entertaining movies. There's a bit of nonsense in there, but there's also a bit of good stuff in there as well. But anyway, in this episode, I'm going to talk about training like a boxer. Boxers train for endurance, they train for strength, they train for stamina, they train for speed, they train for agility. So boxing training needs to hit all these things. So as far as an all-round athlete goes, boxing is amazing training. Even if you don't intend to step in the ring and fight, you can benefit a lot from training like a boxer. In this episode, I'm going to talk about how you can train like a boxer, some of the techniques, some of the routines, some of the exercises and the equipment that boxers use when they're training, and how you can get some of this good all-round training that boxers get without actually fighting. And if you want to train to be a boxer and get in the ring and fight, I'm not saying that not to do that, but I'm going to focus more about the training without actually going into the ring and fighting in this episode. Now, once again, before we get started, if you haven't already, please subscribe to this podcast, share it with people that might get some benefit out of it. Comment, please. Comment. Just put comments in the box. I love reading comments, and do all that cool stuff. It only takes like a few seconds, and it really helps me, I guess, get inspired and want to keep doing this more. So please do so. And with that out of the way, let's hook in. You hear the boxing pun there, hook in. All right. Anyway, so I'm lucky enough at my place of work. I've got this a dedicated boxing room. It's got several heavy bags. It's got skipping ropes. It's got speed ball, floor to ceiling ball. Quite a lot of equipment, and also even a boxing ring. So I'm quite I guess lucky there. But most gyms, well, not most, a lot of gyms have some sort of like heavy bag set up in the corner, maybe a little cardio area that has a boxing bag, somewhere that you can utilize. You might have one at home. Um, so you don't need a big fancy setup, but not that my setup's fancy at all. It's I guess you could call it more authentic than fancy, but you don't need a big setup. You can generally utilize a lot of things you might have in your garage, or in your local gym or whatever. I'm actually standing in my boxing room at work right now, which is I guess quite fitting. So anyway, let's start by talking a little bit about boxing and what boxing is, um, before we get into the training. So boxing is a sport. It's a combat sport. Um, Two people in a ring. I won't go through all the rules, but basically they're two people in a ring, and the idea is to score punches on his or her opponent. So each effective punch on your opponent, it scores a point. So unlike what you see in the movies, you're not really trying to knock out your opponent. You're trying to score points on your opponent. and the person with most points wins the match. There's certain rules, where how you can punch them, what areas you're allowed to punch them, um, various rules. Like any sport, any sport's got rules. So it's not just two people in there punching on, swinging like these big haymakers at each other. There's a lot of technique involved in this because of the rules. You can't grapple, you can't turn this into a wrestling match. So you have to keep upright and trading blows with each other. Um, so like any sport, you need to train around the rules, keeping the rules in mind for your training. So because, there's no wrestling allowed in boxing, so you need to work more on speed, agility, rather than, brute strength, trying to push your opponent outside the ring, like some sports like sumo wrestling and things like that. So because of this, boxers need to train for speed, they need to train for agility, they need to train for precision and endurance. Um, Before I go on, I just want to point out that there is some construction work going on nearby where I'm recording. So if you hear that odd jackhammer or something in the background, that's what that is. So back to boxing, back to the rules, because of the requirements of the rules of boxing, needing to stay on your feet all the time, needing to keep moving to avoid getting hit, needing to you know keep going for the duration of the round. Um, so some of the training regimes that boxers use are like some of the really great training programs out there. And these are programs that you can tap into even if you've got no intention of getting in the ring and fighting. Now I do want to point out there's some classes out there like these box fit type classes. And look, I'm not saying anything bad about them. If you enjoy these classes, um, that's good. Like keep doing them. There's nothing wrong with them. They're pretty good social activities, but they're not actually like training for technique and things. So I just want to make a difference, point out the difference between these boxing fitness style classes where you might be throwing punches to music or doing various kind of like rhythmic type punching workouts, as opposed to boxing training, where that focuses a lot on technique, a lot of cardio, a lot of strength, a lot of punching technique, a lot of footwork. There's a lot more involved than kind of like, bopping around to a bit of music, throwing a couple of punches here and there. Not that there's anything wrong with that if you like to do it, but I just wanted to point out the difference between these types of classes and actual boxing training. Boxing workouts can be really good bang for buck. You can get like a pretty solid workout in 40 minutes, 30 minutes, even 20 minutes if you're short on time. Um, I quite often during my lunch break at work go up in the boxing room, get in a solid 20-minute workout, and feel that I've worked pretty hard in that time. So during this podcast, I'm going to firstly talk about equipment that I feel is necessary, and then equipment that would be good to have. Um, I'm also going to talk a little bit about technique, like the correct way to throw a punch, the correct footwork technique, the correct stance. I'll talk about some various exercises and not be all and end all of exercise, but definitely some of the key exercises to incorporate into your routine. And then I'll talk about how to put it together into a good boxing training program. So let's talk about equipment first. So the first thing that probably comes to your mind, and the first thing I would suggest, is a good pair of gloves. You don't really want to be using those communal gloves that you find at the gym. Um, who knows how many hands that they've been through. So I would strongly suggest getting your own pair of gloves. Now, you've got two styles, two like types, not styles, types of gloves that we're talking about here, and it's going to depend on what you're using them for and kind of like your situation. So you've got what's called bag mitts, and you've got boxing or sparring gloves. So bag mitts, as the name suggests, are predominantly for punching a bag. So they're not really very padded at the front of the glove. Um, they're just, lightweight mitts for training on a bag. Um, they're not to be used for combat, not to be used for sparring or punching other people because they're not weighted for that kind of work. Um, then we go to boxing gloves or sparring gloves, and these are weighted gloves, so they'll have like a number on them, like 16 ounce, 14 ounce, um, 12 ounce, 8 ounce, whatever. And much as I love the metric system, boxing gloves for some reason are in ounces. And these are weighted. These are actually protective piece of equipment for um, the person being punched. So they've actually got a lot of padding so that um, if you're punching somebody else, there's less risk of injury. So if you were to punch somebody with your bare knuckles or with a pair of bag mitts, there's more risk of injury to the person, which, in the sport of boxing, you're not really out there to injure your opponent, you're out there to score points. And boxing tournaments will have rules about the type of glove, the weight of glove required, and that'll depend on like um, the size of the people. Like a heavyweight boxing tournament will usually like have to have 16-ounce gloves. Um, for lighter weights, they might you know they might be able to use lighter gloves, but it comes down to the rules of the tournament. So look, this is I guess if you're just hitting a bag, this is up to you really. Um, you don't need to go to the expense of a full boxing glove if you're just going to be using it for hitting a bag. Um, However, boxing gloves are heavier than bag mitts, so it's good to have a bit of weight on your hands when you are throwing punches. It just helps a bit with that shoulder endurance. But look, up to you if you are just hitting the bag and and not doing any sparring or anything. Bag mitts are fine, and they're a cheaper alternative than your boxing glove. I generally use a lighter sparring glove for my bag work, so about a 12-ounce glove for doing bag work. But you know, if you're not sparring, if you're not doing any fighting, then a bag mitt is perfectly fine. However, if you are sparring, do not spar with bag mitts. Make sure you have sparring gloves or boxing gloves. So, as well as gloves, wrist wraps or hand wraps are quite important. These are good for helping kind of like brace that wrist into position, helping to reinforce the wrist and also to help get a better fit on your glove. Wraps are quite long. Look, there's playing heaps of videos on YouTube about various ways to do up wraps. Um, so watch a few of them and see which method suits you. It does actually take a bit of practice doing up a wrap. Um, And you can also get speed wraps, which is kind of like a glove with padded knuckle, and you just kind of wrap the like wrist bit around, and they're a bit quicker than to putting on a full wrap. So they're kind of a good compromise. Good thing about wraps too is there's if certain workouts you can do like that you can't use a glove for. So if you need to quickly, if your workout involves going from, for example, a speed ball to a skipping rope, you're not ripping gloves on and off all the time. You've got those wraps on, and you can still use the skipping rope with the wraps still on. Um, so yeah, if you're incorporating something in your workout where you need gloves, and then but you also need the dexterity of your hands, wraps are definitely good for that as well. A good pair of shoes, and you kind of want these shoes a little bit flatter and like non-tready, not like a running shoe, especially if you're doing stuff in the ring. A running shoe is not designed for like um, the footwork and pivots and things that you're doing in boxing. And I've made the mistake a few times of forgetting to pack a um a suitable shoe, and then I've gone up into the boxing room to do a workout in my joggers, in my running shoes, and I find the footwork and the agility is just that the shoe is a bit more sticky and tready, and I'm trying to move around, and I'm definitely finding that a bit of a um a problem. So yeah, if you have like a nice kind of flattish shoe with not a real lot of tread, they're more suitable for boxing training than your running shoes. I would put them in the good to have basket, but not essential. You can do it in your running shoes if you need to. So the gloves and the wraps I would put in the essential basket. The the shoes I would put in the good to have basket. So another essential must-have piece of equipment is a skipping rope. Um, you've probably noticed that skipping is something that boxers do a lot of. This is not only for cardio fitness, but also for agility and coordination. A jump rope workout, a standalone jump rope workout can be a solid workout just on its own. Um, Even if you're short on time, just doing like a 10-minute jump rope workout is a solid workout. So I would put a skipping rope in your essential. Definitely chuck that one in your training bag. And find one that, look, there's heaps of different types of skipping ropes out there. Don't go and get like a little kid's kind of lightweight um, kind of plastic one that's going to go pretty slow. You want one you don't need. You can get weighted ones that the ropes are quite heavy, but you kind of want one that the rope is like heavy enough to move quickly. You don't want it slowing down. So as you get better at jumping rope, you can go faster. I'll talk a bit about skipping or jumping rope when I talk about the training techniques. But yeah, definitely put a jump rope in the must-haves. Also a must-have, and it's probably a bit common sense. Like when you're going to a gym or to any workout, there's a towel and a water bottle. Um, Make sure you have one of them. Good to have is a good pair of focus mitts if you're working with a partner. Um, And it's good if you're training with someone else to have a pair of focus bits. So they're the ones that you hold while your partner is actually punching. And that is a good training method if you have a good partner there that is quite good on the focus mitts. But yeah, they're probably a if you're training with a partner, definitely have a pair of them. And just like your gloves, you kind of want your own pair. Um, and look, there's different qualities of these. You can get quite cheap ones, which are all right if you're just doing it every now and then. But for myself, I have quite padded ones that have a lot of wrist support because I do quite a bit of coaching. So, I like to have that extra bit of support because sometimes I'm holding pads for people for, 2, 3, 4 sessions a day. So just having that bit of extra padding and wrist support is definitely worthwhile. But those ones do cost, quite a bit more. So, if you're just doing it every now and then, you probably don't need to invest in the expensive ones. But if you're like me and doing this quite a bit, holding pads for people for, several sessions a day, it's good to have invest in quite, some solid ones. And of course, you need a bag to put all these in. So I have a separate bag for my boxing equipment than I do for my normal gym equipment because I have different things in each bag. And the ones for my boxing equipment needs to be a bit bigger because I've got gloves and focus pads in them. Look, some sort of punching bag is obviously going to be good to have, whether that's in your own home, at the gym, whatever. Access to a punching bag is definitely going to be quite helpful. But if you don't have access to a punching bag, you can definitely do a boxing workout without a punching bag. So don't throw your hands up in the air and say I can't do this training because I don't have access to a bag. There's things you can still do without a bag, but it's good to have access to a bag. Now, the last thing I'm going to talk about, and this is for people that are doing any kind of sparring or competition boxing, these things are essential is safety equipment. So a mouth guard. At the very least, you're going to need a mouth guard. Um, Obviously, you want to protect your teeth, so a well-fitting mouth guard. Um, so make sure it's correct fit for you. Also headgear, so correctly fitting headgear you're going to need, and and possibly a groin guard, or I would highly recommend a groin guard because there are those accidental low blows that come in. So I would highly recommend the groin guard. And once again, as I mentioned before, if you are sparring or fighting, you need those weighted gloves. Bag mitts are not suitable for fighting. So any kind of sparring where you've got somebody else there with you, make sure you have that protective equipment. So moving on, before I talk about the exercises and training itself, I want to talk about technique. So basically, how to stand, how to throw a punch, um, things that might sound a bit basic, but being a boxing coach myself, these are little things that I pick up on, and some of it takes quite a while for people to get the hang of. Um, a lot of people think boxing is about throwing a punch as hard as you can, but there's a lot of a lot of technique in this, and a lot of these things will also help to prevent injury of yourself as well. So I'm going to start with making a fist. So once again, this might sound a little bit basic, but what I want you to do is stick your hand in front of you with your thumb pointing towards your nose. Now curl your fingers around the front and just curl your thumb just around between like the first and the second knuckles, like going from your fingertips, and look at your fist. Just look at your fist in front of you. So you notice there's three sets of knuckles there. There's your first set of knuckles. They're the ones closest to your fingertips. and they're designed just to do a little I guess finicky stuff, to bend the front part of the finger. And then moving back from there, you've got the middle set of knuckles. They're what I call your door knocking knuckles. So if you're going to knock on someone's door, they're the ones you're using. Now going back to the knuckles that are closest to your wrist, they're the ones you want to be punching with. And predominantly like the first two, like the knuckles of the index finger and the middle finger. So they're the knuckles you want to be punching with. So the knuckles closest to your wrist. You don't want to be punching with your door knocking knuckles. Um, Punching with that third set of knuckles, the biggest set of knuckles, and you want to try and aim for those first two, the index finger and the middle finger knuckles. Now I want to talk about wrist position because this is key, and this is like another thing that I commonly need to correct people on is the wrist needs to be straight. Doesn't matter what type of punch you're throwing. So whether you're throwing a straight punch, a hook or an uppercut, your wrist still needs to be straight. You don't want to be like kinking it forward like you're making a sock puppet. You don't want to be kinking it back either. And if your wrist isn't straight and you strike a heavy bag, you could potentially hurt your wrist pretty bad. So yeah, make sure that wrist is nice and straight, nice and strong. Now I could spend like a whole 2 hour podcast talking about technique, but because this episode is more for like getting the fitness value out of a boxer, I'm not going to go too much into technique, but this wrist and punching position is really key. Because you don't want to hurt your wrist while you're punching a heavy bag. Now I just want to cover up on stance, so fighting stance, because this is another thing that people quite often take some time to get used to. So if you're right-handed, like myself, you want to have your left foot forward, your right foot's back. So you have your dominant foot back. If you're left-handed or southpaw, you're the opposite. So you have your right foot forward and your left foot back. The reason for this is you want to capitalize on the power of your hip on your dominant side. So yeah, always have your dominant foot back in your stance because that's where your power for your punch is going to come from. Most of the power for your punch is actually generated from the lower body. So your fist is just a delivery method of this power that's been generated. So quite often when people first start boxing, they have this instinct to, when they throw a punch, to cock their elbow back to try and generate power. So this is not what you want to do. You actually want to get the power from the lower body. So there should be no rearward motion of the elbow when throwing the punch. And look, I feel like this is like several podcast episodes in itself because boxing is very technical. And I just want to cover a few basics into this because I want to get into the training value more than actual technique of boxing. But I feel I do need to cover off on a few main technique points. So this split stance with your dominant foot back, you want to try to maintain that throughout the whole, um, throughout everything that you do. So whether you're moving forward, back, side to side, you don't want to be crossing your feet over or bringing your feet together, um, because that's going to put you off balance. You want to maintain this nice split stance. Um, so if you think of what boxers are training for in their footwork, they want to be agile. So this split stance is perfect for agility, whereas compare it to a sport, for example, sumo wrestling, where your center of gravity changes and what you want to do is push your opponent outside of the ring. So they have this kind of like horse riding stance with a nice and low to the ground, feet side by side. So it's definitely like dictated by the sport what you're trying to achieve here. So for a boxer, you want to be agile. So nice split stance. Try to keep your heels off the ground. So the way I try to imagine if there's like a thumbtack just stuck into the heel of your foot. You don't want to put those heels on the ground, or that tack will come through your shoe into your foot. Kind of a bit like fighting, um, running stance, running foot strike technique. You kind of want to have the forefoot on the ground rather than your heel. So moving up the body, you've got your split stance with your heels a bit off the ground. Knees are slightly bent. Um, Elbows are tucked in. Your guard is up. This is key. You want to have your guard up for obvious reasons. Your chin's tucked in a little bit, and you're kind of looking over the top of your gloves. Now throwing a punch from here, you've got six main types of punches, or six main punches in boxing. You've got your jab and your cross, which are what's known as straight arm punches, because when you connect, your arm is straight. These are nice, fast punches that you're going from the guard covering your face position, striking out and then bring it back quick. When you connect, your arm should be straight. So if your elbow is bent when you connect, you're too close to the target. These are good punches for staying on the outer when you're in a fight. So for trying to score points, but staying out of the reach of your opponent's hooks. Well, now it's important when you throw these punches, when you bring the guard back, it comes straight back to the guard position. So you bring your fist straight back. It doesn't come in a downward motion towards the body. It comes straight back to your face. And speed is also essence. So you want to strike and bring the guard back quickly. You don't want to be pushing the bag or pushing the bag or the pad or whatever you're punching. Just snap it back nice and quick. As I said, for your dominant side, your dominant foot should be back, and um, the power is actually comes from your hip. So you're bringing your heel off the ground, you're twisting your heel outwards, which brings your knee in, brings your hip in. You're generating power all the way throughout your body, and you're delivering that power with your fist. So your cross, if you're right-handed, your right cross, or if you're left-handed, your left cross should be a lot more powerful than your jab. So if a jab is from a non-dominant hand, nice and fast, your cross from the dominant hand, still nice and fast, but because of that power from your hip, that's a much more powerful punch. So there you two straight arm punches. The next four punches are what's called bent arm punches. So your hooks. So a hook is a circular punch. Um, you've got a different aiming point. So you're aiming towards the side. You also need to be in a lot closer to the bag or whatever you're punching. So to do that, you need to bring your body in closer. Um, your guard stays up when you're throwing these punches, as per all punches. And when you connect, as the name suggests, bent arm punch, you're connecting with your elbow bent. Now when you connect with a hook, a common mistake people make is they turn it into a slap and try to like hit with the inside of their hand. You still need to be connecting with those front knuckles, those top knuckles. So you've got your non-dominant hook. So if you're a right-hander, it's your left hook, and then you've got your dominant hook, um, which is for a right-hander would be a right hook. If you're left-hander, a left hook. Once again, for the dominant side, you're using the power from the hip. So you're making this a nice, powerful punch. Hooks can also be called rips. So if you hear the word rip, um, usually used to describe a lower hook, like a hook to the body, but hook, rip, um, so same thing, just a different terminology. Now then you've got your next two punches, the last two punches, are uppercuts. So the point of an uppercut is you're actually trying to get in up underneath someone's guard to break their guard so you can follow through with another punch. Um, so in a lot of these boxing fitness classes, I see people kind of doing these uppercuts like that kind of they're not moving their body at all. They're just kind of like slapping upwards on the pad holders, pads or whatever. Once again, you need to be connecting with those knuckles. Don't turn this into an upward slap kind of thing. And you also need to be getting up and under. So there is some lower body movement required for this. So you do need to get in, up and under, bend those knees, get up and under. And look, I can go on for a long time about I can talk about slips and ducks and weaves and various things, but I'm mindful that I've already been talking for 36 minutes about this, so um, I just want to keep this nice and simple for this episode. So for boxing, another common misconception is people think boxing is about just punching as hard as you can. Most of the work for boxing is done from your lower body. Footwork is key. Fitness is key, which is why like boxers just train for hours and hours on footwork, shadow boxing, jump rope, jogging, things like that, just to work on their fitness, work on their agility, work on their their stamina, work on their footwork. So yeah, so there's a lot more to boxing than just punching a bag as hard as you can. So let's talk about a few exercises that you can add into a boxing routine. Um, so one of the big ones I've mentioned before, skipping or jump rope. The skipping rope is like it's such an important thing in boxing. Um, we all know that boxers jump rope, but for so many reasons. Firstly, you've got obviously the fitness. Jumping rope is quite um, it's a good cardio exercise. But then you've also got agility. Um, you've got like coordination. You've also got strength. This is like an amazing exercise for calf strength. And look, your calves do a lot of work. In boxing, your calves do an awful lot of work. It's amazing how much. Yeah, if you imagine, just like in running, like your calves are doing massive amounts of work. They're they're propelling your body weight. This one little muscle on the back of your lower leg is propelling your body weight. If when you're running, your your calf is propelling your body weight forwards like a couple of hundred times per minute. So skipping is definitely like a good way of building calf strength. Your calves work as shock absorbers for your body. So when we're running, um, if if we're running correctly, striking with the midfoot instead of the heels, the shock is actually worn by these muscles. Your calves are your body shock absorbers. If you're striking with your heel, your calf isn't coming into play, so that shock is being worn by your knees, which is why a lot of people say not boxing, running is bad for your knees. Um, Running incorrectly is bad for your knees. So your calves play an important part in absorbing this shock. Similarly with boxing, we're spending a lot of time being nice and agile, which means heels off the ground. Our calves are doing a lot of work. And a good way to prepare these calves for that work is through jumping rope or skipping. Um, so Let's talk quickly about how to skip. Once again, I can do a whole other podcast episode on this because skipping can be so simple. Well, it is the concept of skipping is simple, but there's a lot of tricks, techniques, a lot of practice involved as well. Um, so first thing you want to do is get a decent skipping rope. And you don't have to spend a lot of money on. You can get a decent skipping rope for under $10. You want to use one that's one from a sports store, not one from a toy store. So don't get your you know 5-year-old kid skipping rope that's just got some light kind of rope that isn't going to turn quickly. You want a decent sports skipping rope, but you don't need to spend a lot of money on this. You can get fancy ones that have counters on them that count the skips and whatever. Just get a decent skipping rope. Now you want to get one that is the right size for you. So what you want to do is find the halfway point along the skipping rope, put your feet there, bring the handles up to your side, and the handle should come up to just past your hip bone. Um, so if they're way up towards your chest, the skipping rope's too long. If if they're like below your hips, then the skipping rope's too short. So make sure you get one the correct size, um, and you can get some adjustable ones. So, whatever, if you can get an adjustable one, do so, but make sure it's the right size, and that's kind of your starting point for jump rope. So to jump nice and simply, all you're doing is turning the rope, and jumping over the rope as it comes down towards the ground. I'm sure we've all seen this before. Um, so to start the jump, you're kind of doing like a big loop for your first skip, and then the key here is keep your hands in nice and close to your body. You're not doing big circles with your elbows, just little circles with your wrist. Um, that I guess that's one of the key things that people kind of have trouble with when they try to skip is doing big circles with every jump. You want to keep those to just have the wrist moving. So do one big circle for your first jump, and then tuck your arms in by your side and kind of just turn those wrists. Um, and then your heels off the ground, so your calves are doing the work. So when you're jumping, you don't want to be hitting with your heels on the ground each time. Um, just have that forefoot hitting and not jumping too high, just nice low jumps. Now, if you're a complete I don't know, no offense, but if you're a skipping rope numpty, which means you're kind of tripping each time that rope goes underneath. You can just start by jumping on the spot. Just go through the motions. Just have the skipping rope in your hand to kind of feel it, I guess, and just kind of start jumping on the spot, keeping those heels off the ground. From there, you can start kind of like twirling the skipping rope as you jump, trying to synchronize the rope with your jumps, and then from there you can start, you know, actually jumping over the rope. Um, so I'm not going to go into um, different jumping rope techniques because that's not what this episode's about. But there's different ways. But if you just start and keep this nice and simple, um, as the rope goes around, just jump once, just keep jumping. So what you can do for a skipping rope workout is just like you can set yourself a timer, maybe start with 30 seconds on, 30 seconds off, 5 rounds. Um, just keep jumping. Set yourself a timer. I use my fitness watch to do this. It beeps when I'm meant to start and beeps when I'm meant to stop. Um, just do maybe 5 rounds, whatever. And as you get better, you can do 40 seconds on, 20 seconds off. You can whatever type of intervals you want to use. So yep, skipping's definitely there for definitely up the top as far as exercise go. I'll probably do an episode later on purely about skipping because there's lots of different techniques and everything. I feel I can do a whole episode on that. But if you're new to skipping, just keep it nice and simple. Don't try and do fancy double unders and all that kind of crossovers and things like that. Just keep it nice and simple. The key here is what you want to do is get a decent pace going. Um, so you can skip at a decent pace to get that cardio value and also keeping the heels off the ground, getting your technique right so that you've got your agility and calf strength happening there as well. So moving on from skipping, another exercise you can add into this routine is bag work or pad work if you don't have a punching bag but you've got a partner that has pads, you can also chop and change and use pad work for these. So a good one is just you can start with the jab cross combination or what is also known as the 1-2 combination. So if you remember, I said there's six punches in boxing. If you number them, your jab cross, your jab is 1, your cross is 2, your front foot hook 3, dominant hook 4, front foot uppercut 5, dominant uppercut 6. So your jab cross combo or your 1-2 combo, um, nice fast punches. So if you are on a bag, for example, you just throw this combination 1-2, bring the guard back up, reset, keep going. Once again, you can do this for intervals. You can do it a certain number of time, whatever you wanted to do. If you had a good partner that can hold pads quite well, they can be holding the pads up for that combo, bring the pads down. They can even be moving around, moving you back and forward, side to side, so that you have to move around and incorporate some footwork into this as well. But that's a bit more advanced. But definitely like your punching drills on the bag, you can do your 1-2 combos. You can do hook combinations. Um, you can just do like one punch. You can just do two jabs um, for like the whole duration of the interval. Um, you could even do things like say like 50 jabs, then 50 crosses, then 50 front hooks, 50 rear hooks. Um, and these can be quite tough and challenging because as you get tired, your technique tends to suffer. So you kind of try to um you kind of want to drop that guard. So keeping that guard up more is it brings the shoulders in to make sure you actually bring that guard up more, and um it's a lot more challenging than it sounds. You imagine like throwing 50 jabs, um, and you kind of wanting to like cheat a little bit and making them not very good ones. So if you make yourself bring each punch back to the guard position, so complete punches, do 50 of them or even 100 of them, or keep doing them for 1 minute, whatever your training program is, and then follow that with crosses, then follow that with left hooks, then follow that with right hooks. They can be quite tough workouts. Some more advanced techniques you can add into these is maybe like a jab cross and a slip. So you could add like defensive techniques into this as well. So you could do add your duck and weave, your step backs, um, footwork into that, so you can sort of ramp it up, um, just to add more elements into this. Now the third um, exercise I want to talk about is shadow boxing, and this is one people tend to get a bit self-conscious about, because they feel other people watching them and laughing, or they look at themselves in the mirror and laugh at themselves, they kind of think it's a bit silly, so they they feel self-conscious about it. But shadowboxing is a very good technique to add into your into your repertoire. So essentially, shadow boxing is practicing techniques. Um, so the footwork is the key technique for the shadow boxing. So you could just start off doing footwork drills, just moving around, maintaining that split stance, trying to be agile, moving it back, moving forward, keeping your guard up, and then you can add some punching combinations to that. So it's also a good way of, working out some new combinations and stuff. So it's not about, throwing punches non-stop for a certain amount of time. It's more about footwork, more about agility, with the odd punch thrown into it. So shadowboxing is a very good thing to add into your workout routine. I use it quite a bit. It's good to have a mirror as well. And I know people don't like to use mirrors because they get a bit self-conscious about it, but it's kind of good. I find a mirror a pretty good tool in shadow boxing. Now core work is very important with boxing training as well, and there's quite a few core exercises that I often add into my routine, especially if I'm training with a partner. There's ones where my partner will be standing on my feet, and I'll be doing half crunches and throwing a jab cross combo at the top of each sit up or each crunch. And as I go down, I'm not going down fully all the way to the ground, kind of maintaining that tension on my core. There's other ones that you can add where you partners in the same position, standing on your feet, um, and you hold like into a half crunch position, so you're not laying on the ground, you're not sitting all the way up, just holding in that half crunch position, so there's tension on your core, and your partner drops a medicine ball towards your belly button. You have to catch it and throw it back. Obviously, you kind of want to be able to trust your partner a bit with that he or she aren't dropping the ball on your face or other parts of your body where you don't want them throwing the ball. But that's quite a good one. The key to that one is kind of holding in that half crunch position to maintain the tension on the core. You can add planks to it. You can add lots of things, but core is like, quite important when it comes to boxing. So there is a lot of core work involved in boxing training. So let's talk about how to throw some of these exercises together to give yourself a good boxing workout. And the first thing you want to decide is how much time you've got, because this is the kind of workout where you want to plan everything out to the minute. So as opposed to going to the gym and you've got a set workout you need to do, but if you're having like more breaks or whatever, it might take an hour, might take an hour 10 or whatever. This is the kind of workout where you want to like account for every minute, every 30 seconds, so that you have it all planned out, what you're doing every minute. Um, the other thing you want to think about when you're planning a boxing workout is gloves on or gloves off, and um, and how much time you've got to transition between gloves on and gloves off exercises. This is important because especially if you're setting yourself a 30-second break, um, that's not enough time to get your gloves back on properly. Um, you might think it's enough time, but after you've done one set of something and you're kind of shaking and trying to get these gloves back on properly, it may not be enough time. So what you might end up doing is either starting the next set late or not getting those gloves on properly, because you're trying to rush through it. So when planning your workout, it's good to factor in like, um, is it going to be a gloves on workout for the whole workout? It's going to be gloves off. Are you going to be mixing gloves on and gloves off? Um, so if you are mixing gloves on and gloves off, um, what I would recommend is leaving your gloves off exercises till the last half of the workout. So you might be doing um, things that require gloves on, and um, then you rip those gloves off and do the rest of the gloves off exercise in the last half of the workout. So factor that in, because it's quick to take gloves off. It can take time to put gloves on. You might also want to use wraps or speed wraps instead of gloves if you're doing lighter style punching and not, punching hard on a heavy bag. So you might not need gloves at all. Wraps might be sufficient, which would mean you could keep them on because you can leave your gloves, your your wraps on. You can leave your wraps on while you use a skipping rope and while you're doing various other exercises that you need your hands for. So what you want to do first, once you've got your workout planned, is do a warm up. So for a warm up, I might do like some skipping rope rounds, as I said, um, skipping rope rounds, five rounds, 30 seconds on, 30 seconds off, um, 5 rounds. What I usually do with this too is in my last, I count my skips, and in my last round, I try to beat the highest number of skips. So I try to speed up that skipping rope. If you're not very good at skipping, you can do star jumps. You can do um, you can do just jumping on the spot, just something to get that heart rate up and to get those legs, those calves moving, to get that agility going. So work out how many rounds you want to do, your duration of your rounds, your duration of the rest, and this is going to kind of, this depends on how much time you've got. So, if you've got 20 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour, whatever, that's going to factor into like your duration of your rounds, your number of rounds, your amount of rest. Work out your exercises. Um, so you might have um, you might have bag rounds where you're doing jab cross combos. You might have shadow boxing. You might have hooks on the heavy bag. Um, you might have sit-ups in there. You might have planks in there. So basically set your rounds, choose exercises and hook in. So I'll give you a bit of an example here. I'm going to choose 5 exercises here. I'm going to choose jab cross combos on the bag. I'm going to do shadow boxing. Um, I'm going to do planks. I'm going to do heavy bag rounds, and I'm going to finish off with jump rope. So my rounds, I'm going to make them 40 seconds on, 20 seconds off. You notice how I've put the jump rope at the end of the workout. So um, I've already done my warm up jump rope. So I've put the jump rope at the end of the workout to finish off. That way I can just rip off my gloves, ditch the gloves, and I don't have to put them back on against the workout. I'm going to do 3 rounds of each, so 40 seconds on, 20 seconds off, um, which is going to give me 15 minutes all up. So I start with the jab cross combo. So I've set my timer. I use my fitness watch, as I said, my smart watch, but you can look at the clock, whatever works for you. I'm going to do my first 3 rounds of those jab cross combo. Just 1, 2, 1, 2. Reset in between 40 seconds. Timer goes off after 40. I've got 20 seconds breaths. 3 rounds. After that, I'll do my 3 rounds of shadow boxing. Got a mirror. Use your mirror as a tool. Try not to get self-conscious about it. As I said, this is an amazing technique here. It's good for working on the footwork. So I've done my 3 rounds once again of the shadow boxing. Um, so with my timer, I've carried on. I haven't like stopped in between each exercise. I'm just my time is constantly set on the 40 seconds work, 20 seconds rest. So I've done my 3 rounds of shadow boxing. Right now I'm hitting the dectal planks, or some sort of core work, whatever you like to do. You can mix and match these exercises. This is just essentially like an example. So I do my 3 rounds of planks, keep it. And look, I've talked about planks before in many other podcasts. Keep a nice straight line between your shoulder and your heel, engaging that core. Once again, for the 3 rounds, 40-second rounds, 20 seconds rest. From there, I'm doing heavy bag work. So I'm doing a mixture of footwork, um, jabs, crosses, hooks, moving around the bag, keeping moving for those 3 40-second rounds. Once those 3 rounds are over, I take those gloves off. I'm done with gloves. I grab the skipping rope ready for 3 40-second rounds of skipping and and a workout, 15 minutes, and I've got a solid workout in. So that's just an example of the type of workout I'll do. But that's how you could do a really good, 15-minute workout. If you had more time, you could add more exercises in, or, you can make your rounds 1 minute, 30 seconds rest. Um, that it's kind of like a bit more of an idea and not just like, a solid working plan, workout plan. Um, I mean, it's definitely a good workout plan. I can tell you that from experience. I do that quite a bit. It's a good lunch break one actually. Just pick 5 exercises, 3 rounds. Your rounds are a minute, including the rest. So you could do 30-second work, 30-second rest. Um, or if you're just starting out, you do 20 seconds work, 40 seconds rest. Whatever works for you. But I've got a solid workout done in 15 minutes. Um, put some deodorant on, change my shirt, get back to work. So that's just one example. You can mix and match exercises, and it really depends too. If you have a partner there, someone that you're working with, you can obviously do more partnered style exercises like pad work and more partner kind of core work exercises. If you had more time, you could incorporate running into that because running is definitely good for boxing. It helps with the stamina. It helps with the cardio fitness. It also helps with the calf strength and that agility as well. So you could use the run as a warm up for your workout, or you could go for a run after your workout. Yeah. So anyway, that's a few things like you can incorporate a good workout suggestion um, to train like a boxer. And there's things, like as big as a fan I am of the Rocky movies, I definitely wouldn't suggest getting up in the morning and cracking raw eggs into a glass and then drinking them and then heading straight off for a run. You don't need to go to your local butcher and find like a carcass to go punching. And if you've listened to my podcast episodes before, you probably know how I feel about um, one arm push-ups. Not an exercise that I would recommend, but look, they're very entertaining movies, um, and and there is some good stuff in there as well. There's obviously the running, the jump rope. There's a lot of exercises in there that are value, but there's a lot of stuff in there that's kind of like nonsense just for Hollywood's sake. But um, yeah, great movies. I don't know how many times I've watched the original Rocky movies, but very very entertaining. Yeah, but I definitely wouldn't recommend the raw egg trick. Don't go cracking raw eggs into a glass and drinking them straight down. I definitely would not recommend that. Not that I've tried it, but yeah, probably not a good thing to do. And then to go for a run straight after, you'd probably be throwing those eggs up after about half a k. But anyway, that's my episode. Um, I've actually gone over the hour. It's been quite a while since I've gone over an hour for an episode. Not I didn't intend to do this, but I guess I once you get me talking about boxing, I do talk quite a bit about the technique, correct technique, because I'm quite passionate about it. Um, and I could do multiple episodes just on correct technique. But the idea of this was just to try and give you guys a bit of a idea about other things you could add into your workout routine, especially if you're short on time. Now, before I close off on this episode, I just want to let you guys know that I'll be having a bit of a break for a couple of weeks. Um, but don't worry, I'll be back. I feel that somebody has used that term before. I'll be back, but I will be back in mid-June. Um, I'm just going away on a little bit of an adventure, which I'm not going to tell you guys about now, but I will be talking about it when I get back. Um, so don't worry. Um, I will be back um, after a couple of weeks. So my next episode will come out mid-June. Um, yeah. So thanks for listening, guys. I hope you got something out of this. Please like, subscribe, do all that cool stuff, and I will talk to you later. Bye.